Hello.
Hello. Can I see if people have joined already somewhere?
I'm not sure, actually.
Okay. I'll wait a minute to let people join, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I shouldn't wait. Okay. Then I'll go ahead. So my name is Paloma Gomez. I'm a student from Utrecht University in the Netherlands. Today we're very glad to have Professor Nzongola, who is the writer of the Congo from Leopold to Kabila, People's History. Florence, who probably some of you might know from the previous event we had in May this year, who is going to be asking him some questions. As I was explaining before, we have students from different faculties. I think mostly everyone that will join from my side is going to be students from the geosciences faculties or the humanities faculties. And we're very happy to have you. So please, Florence, if you want to go.
Yes, thank you, Paloma. Yes, so I want to introduce to everyone Professor Georges Nzongola-Ntalaja, who's joining us today. He's one of the most esteemed scholars writing and lecturing about the Democratic Republic of Congo. I just heard that up until recently, I thought that you were still currently teaching, but up until recently, he was a professor of African and Afro-American studies at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. And he has authored multiple books on Congo, most notably the title that we're going to talk about today, as well as his renowned biography on Patrice Lumumba and many others. Yeah, so hello, Professor.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here today.
A pleasure.
So, yeah. So today we want to talk about your book, The Congo from Leopold to Kabila, A People's History, that you published in 2002. So a bit about this book for the audience members who might not know about it. So this book not only is it like one of the most illuminating accounts of the past 2 centuries of Congolese history, I would also consider it essential read on neocolonialism. So the book chronicles the horrors suffered under King Leopold, then the oppressive colonial rule of Belgium. It delivers a uniquely class-conscious account of the Congolese independence movement, delves into the Congo crisis and the eventual neocolonial takeover of the country through the Belgian and US-orchestrated assassination of Patrice Lumumba. It discusses the dictatorship under Mobutu that has been propped by the United States for 3 decades, as well as the relentless political mobilizing of the Congolese people against this undemocratic, violent regime. The book explains how tensions created through colonial rule led to the Rwandan genocide and how this violence bled into the Democratic Republic of Congo. It shines light on the First and Second Congo Wars and describes how the rebel groups' militant fighting began. Basically, the militant combatant groups that are still fighting on Congolese soil today. So in this conflict, the plunder for resources and the general subhuman conditions that take place in Congo's mines have led to over 6 million Congolese people losing their lives since the 90s, another 7 million people internally displaced, and 25 million people facing starvation. And out of the 100 million people in Congo, 70 million inhabitants are living in extreme poverty today. So because of these conditions that we are witnessing today and have been witnessing over the past decades, we are here today again, spreading awareness about Congo, the ongoing struggle. Okay, yeah.
Well, thank you.
So that's just some info on the book. a new book for those who might not know.
Okay, thank you, Florence. I am really pleased to see that a book that I published in 2002, that's 22 years ago, is still being talked about today. So I'm very pleased because I did lots of work on that book. I started in 1980 at Howard University, where I taught for 19 years. Then I left Howard in 1997, and I was hired by the United Nations, the UNDP, United Nations Development Program, and worked in different places in Nigeria, in Norway, in New York. But then I used my 2 years in Nigeria because I didn't have much to do on evenings and weekends. My wife would come to visit me from time to time. She didn't like to be living in Nigeria. And so I had plenty of time to look at my papers because I had done research in the archives in Belgium at the Royal Library and at other places in Brussels. I did research also at the United Nations archives in New York City, and of course read a lot of books. And so I had plenty of information, although I didn't have all the things I needed when I was writing, and I had to do a lot of work and thinking about the references and so on. But I ended up with pretty good references. The book was basically done to make people understand what the Congo is all about, what we have really suffered from, how the people of the Congo have suffered. I didn't do much about the slave trade because I didn't know much, I didn't have much information about that. But we started with King Leopold because he's the one who became the ruler of the Congo after the Berlin Conference in 1984-85. I mean, in 1884-85. And for a very strange thing, King Leopold wanted Belgium to have a colony, and Belgium didn't want to have a colony. So he said, okay, he'll have it as his own personal property. So here we are, and he named the country the Congo Free State, which is quite interesting because it wasn't a free state.
Yeah, it
It was basically a slave plantation. That's what it was, because the king, first of all, he used things that things could collect, like ivory tusks, because of ivory was very much in need. In Europe, as you know, pianos are made of keys. The keys are coming from ivory. And of course, rubber became a very, very important commodity after a Scottish physician found a way to make a tire out of that could be used for bicycles and so on. And this really gave one French important business person the idea to ask a payment for a tire made for vehicles. Vehicles went around that much at that time in 1891. And so all of these made the market for tires very, very important. And so King Leopold put the Congolese on the task of collecting rubber as much as they could. As a matter of fact, each village was given a quota of how much they should they should give to Leopold's agents each day. And of course, if you didn't do that, you get into real trouble. Women were raped. People were sent back into the bush to look for more rubber. Children were held without food or water for a long, long time. And many people died. Some died from bullets, but most of them died from the fact that they didn't have enough food. They had to run away from villages into the wild, and there they had to confront wild animals, insects, snakes, and all kinds of things. And so the experts who have been following this issue have found that it is close to 10 million people died in the Congo between 1891 to 1904. And this is what we call the Holocaust of King Leopold in the Congo. There were people who have been looking at this, especially Christian missionaries, but also people who were historians interested in the Congo. And all of these did make a situation where an organization was created in London, in England, called the Congo Reform Movement. And this Congo Reform Movement went out on a very, very important campaign against King Leopold, which included people who were well-known people. And all of these campaign resulted in the international community taking a decision to take the country away from King Leopold. As you know, one Belgian historian had written that King Leopold owned the Congo just like John Rockefeller owned Standard Oil. In other words, the question was, it is something from which you can make money, something that is good. And so they took away the country from him and gave it to Belgium, which reluctantly took the country. And yet Belgium was supposed to improve the situation in the Congo. But that's not exactly what they did. The level of violence certainly was diminished. There wasn't violence as the violence under King Leopold. But the gist of the administration of the country, what was done politically, economically, and in terms of social and cultural things, was very much not different. There is a British historian, Roger Anstey, who wrote a book about the Congo under Belgian rule. And he points out that basically what the Belgians did was simply to follow what King Leopold did, except that there wasn't as much violence as under King Leopold. And this is what Belgium did. Most of the thing was that they continued as the Belgian Minister of Colonial Affairs in 1921 wrote in an article that the most important thing for Belgium is to develop the economic action for Belgium. Now, what does that mean? It means that Belgians were in the Congo just simply to enrich Belgium, the Belgians, and not the Congolese people. And this is what was done. As a matter of fact, during the two world wars, World War I, in World War I, our soldiers beat the Germans in what is now Tanzania, close to the border with the Congo at Lake Tanganyika. And then this is why when the international community decided to give former German territories to different countries, they gave Tanzania to Britain, but they gave Belgium, Rwanda, and Burundi. As a matter of fact, when I was growing up as youngsters and then going to secondary school, I didn't think that we were different countries. I thought that, because we were known as Le Congo Belge and Le Rwanda Urundi, Belgian Congo and Rwanda Burundi. And we had the same governor general for all the three territories. We have the same administration, the same armed forces, and so many other things were together. And it was only in 1960 when we got our independence from Belgium, but then the United Nations said, oh no, this Rwanda and Burundi are part of the UN system, and so they can't go to independence of the Congolese. They have to have their own separate independence. And so that's how it happened. They had to wait 2 years. 1962, Rwanda and Burundi became independent, of course, separately. Each one of them had one country and so on. In World War II, also, the Congo played a major role in defeating Mussolini's occupation of Ethiopia. Our soldiers made victories, great victories against Italians. As a matter of fact, one day, I think it was in 2012, I got a letter from Ethiopian student at the Columbia University in New York. He said he had read my article on Lumumba's assassination. And so he wrote to me to congratulate me. And then he had a question. He said that, Professor, I come from a little village in Ethiopia, on the west side of Ethiopia, close to Sudan. And we have a place called Congo Cemetery. Now, what is that? How can we have a Congo cemetery way away from the Congo in Ethiopia? I said, well, my brother, those are the Congolese soldiers who died for you to free you from fascism, because we had the 3 major victories over Italian troops, where even generals and colonels and other officers did give themselves to the Congolese army. It was mostly, there were Congolese armies with only few Belgian officers, but most of the armies, as a matter of fact, one of the person who was really became a hero was a sergeant in the Congolese army. As a matter of fact, Congolese could not have a position beyond sergeant major during the colonial period. And so we played a major role, and Belgium didn't have to spend a shilling or a single dollar for all of these operations that were done by Congolese troops, with, of course, Belgian officers. So this is, and of course, when independence came, the Belgians did was they basically wanted to destroy the Congolese economy. What they did was Belgium had started with the government working with what were called concessionary companies, or major companies that had the industries, that had the commerce, they had agriculture, and so on and so forth. Many of these companies were told to remove their headquarters from the Congo back to Belgium. And those in which government had money, government was a partner in those companies, the government sold their whatever they owned in the companies to individuals, to private. It means that the Congolese state had nothing. We had so much money. For example, you take the Gécamine, the major company that was producing cobalt and copper and many other, and even the uranium that the Americans used to drop on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the 1940s, 45s, World War II. The Congolese government had about 40% of ownership of a company, and the rest were owned by different companies. Most importantly, the Belgian Société Générale and the British company that was based in South Africa, and so on. So all of this really made it terrible for the country. And even more terrible, they killed our prime minister, Patrice Lumumba, a young man of 35 years old, whose only desire was to make sure that the Congo is really a country that is totally independent, that is sovereign, and that is able to use its natural resources. And we know our country is full of natural resources. Use them to improve the living conditions of the Congolese people. That's all he wanted. He wasn't the communist. He wasn't against the Europeans or Americans. And yet the Belgians and Americans did their best to get rid of him and to kill him, and even to put his body into acid so he can be dissolved and so on. So this is basically of course, the last area, of course, is what happened after independence and the current situation where Paul Kagame has been waging war against the Congo in the last 30 years. And there again, we don't know the exact number of people, but many people say that it is over 10 million people have been killed, and the international community is doing nothing. I served in the Congo as ambassador to the United Nations in 2022 and 2023, and I argued time and time again that the United Nations, the Security Council, ought to put severe sanctions against Rwanda. They never looked at it. As a matter of fact, they were annoyed by me. They said, this professor is here just lecturing us all the time. We don't want to listen to him. And so that's the way. But then Kagame, who's a criminal, who's committed all kinds of crimes, is beloved of the major powers, United States, France, Great Britain, and many others. And all of it, what he does is nothing. Even most interesting, I'm sure some of you have been following the trial of Professor Onana of Cameroon, who's written lots of books, excellent books about what Kagame has been doing, and he's now being charged that he's against genocide. He's a denial of genocide, which is nonsense. And all of this, and of course, he has a Belgian colonel who used to be the leader of the UN troops in Rwanda, who has testified or would testify to the court to point out that all the things that Onana has written are totally correct, and he knows that they are, you see. And so the international community, why do we don't want to help us? Why do we want to be on our side? Mostly because they have this idea that they want to divide the Congo into small pieces. Just like they've divided Sudan in now 2 countries. Some people are talking about dividing Sudan into 3 by having Darfur as a different country. And so they've tried very, very hard, but the people of the Congo are damn concerned and, of course, committed. But our country shall never be split into small pieces. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, really amazing. So glad that we all get to witness you speak about this. Yeah, I mean, to begin with some questions, I wanted to ask you, I mean, quite broadly about just the neocolonial situation in Congo, because, I mean, you touched upon how in your book you described how Congo was first infiltrated by neocolonial forces in the 60s. And then you also describe how we saw the first ever resistance movement to neocolonialism in Congo.
Let me get your book. Let me get your book. Hold on.
Yeah, of course.
Have you seen this book?
No, I can't read the rest of the title also, so
It's White Malice. White Malice. And that's the title. Subtitle is The CIA and the Covert Recolonization of Africa. It's by a British historian who's written several books on the Congo. One was the concerning the giving of our uranium to the Americans for the Hiroshima bomb. And this book is an excellent book. It should be read by everyone. And I'm surprised. I'm happy too that she quotes me a lot in the book.
Okay. Yeah.
and her main argument in this book is that the colonial powers and, of course, the imperial powers, including the United States, their commitment was to recolonize Africa by using people like Mobutu Sese Seko in the Congo, people who are stooges or dictators, but who know that their power is maintained by them. As a matter of fact, Mobutu was put in power by the United States and Belgium in 1965, and it was the United States that worked with Rwanda and Burundi to remove Mobutu from power in 1997. So you see that. But this book concerns only two countries. It's about Ghana and the Congo.
I see.
It's very, very interesting. Ghana is one of the first African countries to gain their independence. People say that was the first African. No, it's not the first, because we have Libya was independent 51. Egypt was even much longer, although the 22, the so-called independence of the British government in 1922 wasn't really real, because the British continued to run the country until 1952, when the young officers led by Gamal Abdul Nasser did overthrow the king, who was of Albanian origin, and removed him, and so that the Egyptians could be totally free in 1952. Yeah, 52. And then Libya became independent in 61, in 51, pardon me, and Tunisia, Morocco, and Sudan in 56. And so Ghana became independent in March 1957. And Kwame Nkrumah was a true Pan-Africanist who wanted that the independence of Ghana would mean nothing if the rest of Africa remains under colonial rule. That he will do his best to help all these other countries to become independent. Now, at the independence ceremony of Kwame Nkrumah in Accra, Mr. Nixon, the Vice President of the United States, was there representing the United States. And around him, there were a lot of CIA guys who were there to find out who is this Nkrumah, who's this guy, and who's talking about independence for all of Africa and so on. And also Nkrumah had the plan that he wanted to use nuclear power to be able to provide light to people all over Ghana, and to help develop industries for the development of the country. He wasn't interested in weapons, anything like that. But so the Americans did their best to do their best to try to kill all that project. And of course, they succeeded in getting him moved from power in 1966 in a coup d'etat by the Ghanaian soldiers formed in England. They were all puppets of the English, and they're the one who did the coup d'etat to remove Nkrumah from power, and he went to live in Guinea Conakry, where he died in 1972. And so that is one good example of how the CIA played a major role in making it possible for an elected leader, a leader who's beloved by his people, who's beloved by many, many people in Africa, but they did their best to get rid of him. And then the same thing with Lumumba. He, as I said, his main desire was to make sure that the resources of Congo are used to improve the living conditions of Congolese. Well, what they did, they killed him. He only lasted 2 months, 2.5 months in power. And then they had him arrested, and then they killed him in January of 1961. And the CIA was very much involved. They had one of plan of using cobra venom to put to his food and his toothpaste. But the head of the CIA in Kinshasa told the scientists from the CIA that is stupid. He said, who's going to penetrate Lumumba's house to get these things to his food or his toothpaste? He said the best way to get rid of him is to use his Congolese adversaries to get rid of Lumumba as prime minister. And then once he's gotten rid of him, then we can get rid of him physically. And that is exactly what happened. That the American plan of using a cobra venom was used, and the Belgian plan of hiring a good guy who knows to hunt crocodiles, a crocodile hunter. They should use a good gun to kill Lumumba. Of course, that wasn't used either, because the CIA plan turned out to be the best plan, and Lumumba was killed in Katanga, but by Belgian soldiers and police officers, not by Africans. It was the Belgians who killed him, and who also put he and his 2 companions who were with him, they were also all of them, 3 of them, dissolved in acid. Anyway, you should read Susan Williams' book, because it is really a good example of how the imperial powers and former colonial powers have done their best to make it possible that our countries do not go up ahead. And of course, there's also the failure of our leaders, because many of our leaders have wanted only to be rich, to be enriched, and then to do nothing for our people. And so this is why we have countries like my country, which is 64 years of independence, and we don't have roads to speak of in terms of having good roads. In a country, in Congo, when you want to travel in Congo, you go by planes. You can go by road,
Yeah.
or even by railroad. The railroad
Go much
doesn't
efficient.
work anymore. So this is the
Yeah.
situation we face in the Congo today.
I see. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said also about how the institutional makeup of the country is made in such a way that the elites are really incentivized to just betray the people, right? I mean, the way that class is even structured in Congo, and the way that there was this Evolu class established during colonialism that then went on to, yeah, betray the country, basically.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I wanted to ask if you feel like Congo is like in particular like an exemplary case study almost of how neocolonialism functions in these ways. I read that a few years ago your book was added to this like top 10 list of books to read on neocolonialism by The Guardian. I thought that was really interesting since it is a book about a specific country and not just neocolonialism broadly. So yeah, in what way would you say is Congo exemplary for neocolonialism, and what can we learn about Congo?
Well, the neocolonialists, I mean, the Congolese are not neocolonialists. The neocolonialists are the Europeans and the Americans.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But would you say that?
But they have succeeded in winning over our leaders because our leaders believe that the only way to stay in power is to have the support of these countries. You see, it is, for example, the former leader of Gabon, Omar Bongo. He was the person who gave money to French candidates for the presidency. They all ran to Libreville of Gabon to get money from him. He'll give them, millions of dollars to these people to make. And of course, they come in France. They claim that, well, we don't have any money. We don't raise any money outside of the country, and so on and so forth. But when in reality, they have all these African leaders, like not only Gabon but also Cote d'Ivoire and maybe others, would give them money for elections. And so this is what they like. And of course, those leaders who gave them money stayed in power for a long, long time. Bongo until he died. Houphouët-Boigny also until he died, and so on. So this is the way the system is. And that our leaders they know that the best thing to do is to have countries in the world who are supporting them. Countries like the United States, France, Belgium, Great Britain. These are countries people look to be kept in power. And therefore, what they do is they don't use our money the way it should be used. It should be used for the infrastructure. Let's get good roads and good hospitals and schools, and let the people be able to work, get jobs. And you have, for example, in the Congo right now, young people can go and finish high school, finish university. They can finish universities and they can get jobs. And then they will be running motorcycles, taxis, and they work on motorcycles to make money. And that is simply a shame. It shouldn't be that way,
Yes.
I saw somebody had a question there.
Yeah, of course. Let's see. Okay. There's a question from a student. How did Mobutu Sese Seko get removed from power, and what international actors had interest behind this?
Yes, Mobutu was removed from power in 2 steps. The first step was the people of the Congo. We went, and I was one of those people at the Sovereign National Conference, and I write about it in my book. I devote the whole section of the book on the Sovereign National Conference, which was held in 1992 for the whole year. Actually, it started in August of 1991, but then it was from time to time interrupted because the politicians were all fighting and so on. But it really got into good gear in April of 1992. And that's where I was invited, and I was co-opted by the members of the council of the conference. They had 7 of us, known as so-called esteemed or great scholars of international repetition or whatever. And so we were there as individuals, not as representatives of political parties or civil society organizations and whatever. We were there on our own, and we could talk like a political party or a NGO, and we played the major role in the discussions. For example, in my case, I gave my own speech, the general politics speech, in May, 14th May of 1992, and I became known in the Congo. and here's a country where we have the postal system doesn't work very well. It is very, very poor. And yet I had over 500 letters sent to me by young people from all areas of the Congo, telling me how much they liked what I said, and also that they were willing to work with me, and so on. This is why in 1996, the political party of the opposition, what is called Union de UDPS, wanted me to be the chairperson of the electoral commission, which has been established, and the opposition side and the Mobutu side had agreed that the opposition will have the presidency of the commission. When the time came to decide the president, Mobutu asked his minister, he said, now who does the opposition propose to be the head of the commission? They said, Professor Nzongola. He said, hell no. so here he was, supposedly he was really weakened because he knew and he saw how the people of the Congo did not want him. The people really didn't want him. They wanted the new leaders. And so we gave him a ceremonial position as a president for 2 years, gave him his 2 palaces, gave him a good pension, and said that he will not be pursued for all the crimes he's committed, so on. But then his generals revolted against him. They said, no, you're going to accept this? What about us? We're going to be pursued and put in jail and all of that. And so Mobutu turned around and started to revitalize his military to continue running the country. He dismissed the interim prime minister, Etienne Tshisekedi, the father of the current president, and so on. And so anyway, I did serve the commission for 8 months, and then I resigned in protest because the president and his prime minister and the minister of interior were basically sabotaging our work, and we couldn't really move forward. Let me see. I don't want to lose the question. So Mobutu was weakened by the people. As a matter of fact, at one point, he couldn't live in Kinshasa. He started staying on his boat on the Congo River. and then from there, he went to his palace way up in the north, close to the border between Congo and Central African Republic. And when he came to Kinshasa, for example, he came for the funeral of a great religious leader of the Kimbangu faith. He had to come in with helicopters from the airport. He comes in a helicopter. He wouldn't want to come through the road because he knows that the people would be, insulting him and so on. So he used a helicopter to come to go to his residence, and but then what happened was, of course, the Rwanda genocide in 1994. He was supposed to be a great leader and supporter of Habyarimana, the Hutu leader, the president of Rwanda. And so when the genocide took place of Kagame and taking over the country by July of 1994, he had his plan, which was made up of the Americans, and was that they wanted to get rid of Mobutu so that Rwanda can do whatever it wants to do in the Congo. It's basically with the American plan to divide the Congo into 4 different countries, and he and President Museveni of Uganda, they were all involved in this war against Mobutu, which started in 1996 and ended in 1997. And so they succeeded in getting rid of Mobutu and replaced him by Laurent Désiré Kabila, the father of the younger Kabila, who later came after him when Laurent Kabila was again killed by one of his guards, and I think that guard was really put to it by the people who were working with the Rwandans to get rid of Laurent Kabila, because Kabila, whom the Rwandan and Ugandan thought was going to be someone who was going to play their game, he was just playing. He was a trick. He's a guy who was a Lumumbist, who had been working in a bush as a leader who wanted to use guerrilla warfare. As a matter of fact, Che Guevara from Cuba was sent there to help him to improve his guerrilla groups. Although he didn't do much, because he and Guevara could not understand each other. Could not really see eye to eye, and so the Cubans left, and he himself at one point was no longer involved in guerrilla war, become a person who was selling things, became a merchant. Then these leaders of the neighboring countries thought that he was the guy they could put in the Congo as a president, but he will be their stooge. Well, Laurent Kabila wouldn't want to become a stooge. And so after a year, he dismissed all of these Rwandans and Ugandans who were in the country. He said, and you go back to your countries, and I don't need you anymore. And then a week later, after he dismissed these people, they came back on August 2nd, 1998, to start another war to get rid of Laurent Kabila. They didn't succeed because Angola, Zimbabwe, and Namibia came in to support Kabila, and therefore the Rwandans and Ugandans failed. But of course, they still had this idea that they have to get rid of him, and of course, they got rid of him, and had his son in power, and his son was basically a stooge of the Rwandans and Uganda. So that's how Mobutu was getting rid of the 1997 the invasion of the country by Rwanda and Uganda with American support was the one that made it possible. And this was President Clinton was behind all of that.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much. I found it quite interesting to hear that anecdote about the people of Kinshasa kind of intimidating Mobutu. I feel like these kind of really people-centered narratives, you don't hear that often in scholarship on Congo. And that's something that I find particularly much in your work. So
Yeah.
I was actually really curious about this when I was reading the book from Leopold to Kabila as well, because you are in that book talking about, those bottom-up democracy movements and student activists and the working class and the peasantry rioting to end colonialism. So I was really curious actually to ask you if you took this conscious decision to highlight the revolutionary potential of the Congolese people.
Well, there was, of course, a revolutionary wave in a country. You remember that after independence in 1960, in 1963 to 1968, we had what was known as the second independence movement. So what was the second independence movement? Here was peasants, workers, students, and some intellectuals. We decided that the independence we have is a sham. It wasn't a real independence. We have to put a real independence. Now we had two groups of leaders of this movement. They have started together, but then they were divided by region because one of the major center was Kisangani, formerly Stanleyville, the country and the bend of the Congo River in the northeast. And it was led by the people who were the followers of Patrice Lumumba. And who had the people who had replaced Lumumba in the leadership of their political party, who were the leaders of the struggle to overthrow the regime in Kinshasa. They started quite well when they started. Even Laurent Kabila was involved in that section of the movement. They took over the province of Bukavu, of Kivu, which now is 3 provinces. Now is Maniema, South Kivu, and North Kivu. But they took that province, and of course, the Lumumba had already taken over Stanleyville and the Oriental province, and had some support from the northern part of Katanga, was also with them. As a matter of fact, the revolutionary groups had almost close to, at one point, they had close to half of the territory was under their control. But then the American and the Belgians came in with the counter-revolution. And they had sophisticated weapons. And these people of Lumumba followers, many of them had really very little knowledge of how to organize a movement and how to lead it. As a matter of fact, when they came and took over a city, for example, a capital of a province or a district, the first thing they want to look at the residence of the person in charge, of the governor or the district commissioner, and all they want is to look for money, because they know that these people keep their money in their homes. This is what they want to do, and so this made them very much people did not really believe them as genuine revolutionaries. As a matter of fact, they would send the young people into the battle, and many of them, these young people, would be killed because they won't have not very good training as soldiers, and will not have very good weapons to fight with, and so they were simply doing that. So when the Europeans came, and with South African mercenaries and European mercenaries, and of course troops from Belgium and Cuban hires by the Americans to fly planes that were putting out bombs and so on and so forth, that weakened the movement very well. The second section, which was in the west, close to Kinshasa, was led by Pierre Mulele. Pierre Mulele was a real revolutionary.
Yes. Yeah, I remember reading about him in your book.
Right.
So.
And he's a person who really, but he would lead his troops, would take over territories and districts, but he wouldn't govern, he wouldn't take over. He said, no, he said, that's for the people to decide. So he was kind of a person who had both the idea of doing a revolution, and at the same time, the person who said that, is for the people to make decisions. And of course, that wouldn't work. Because when the American and the Belgians came, of course, they were able to get rid of all of these groups. So the second independence movement failed as a result of lack of leadership and lack of very good way of organizing a guerrilla warfare. Now, the problem of our leadership is that people do not think in the past, in terms of the future. They do not organize how to do things to really succeed in making the country well-governed. So, for example, the Sovereign National Conference was really the best thing our country has ever had. As a matter of fact, many countries in Africa tried to learn from us and try to do the same thing we did in the Congo. But you see, as when the Laurent Kabila was killed, and the people are now trying to say, how are we going to organize the country? They all ran to go to South Africa for 2 years of meetings with the support of the South African government, and of course, with support of the United States and the European powers. The same crew, is Germany, France, Belgium, and all those countries were given. So the question is that we have done in the Congo very good job of doing a new constitution, but was very, very democratic. It was very good. Having organizing how the government is going to be run, how the country is going to be run, all of these things. And these people say that they're going to go to another dialogue in South Africa. When they told me that, I told them that you are stupid. I said, I'm not going to go. I'm not, and I told the head of the leader, Mr. Tshisekedi, I said, you shouldn't be doing that. He said, well, but the Europeans, I said, the Europeans are not our leaders. We are the leader. And so they went there, they come out, they said, okay, and then they decided that the transition is going to be is going to be overseen by the major powers. So they created a group of the Americans, the French, the Belgians, the British, and others to make sure things are going to go right. I mean, of course, all they did was to get rid of Tshisekedi, because he was a guy whom the people trusted. He was a guy who was not corrupt. He was a guy who would do well. They didn't want him. So they did their best to get that little Kabila who came from nowhere, who had no education, nothing, and to become president. And he stayed in for 18 years. And so this is how the country failed to really make the change that should have been made.
Yeah. Yes, I see. Thank you so much. Maybe it could be interesting to see some more questions from the audience.
Sure.
In case. I think we wanted to do more, but now I'm not quite sure. Oh yeah. Okay. Currently no other questions from students, but it could be interesting to maybe look, from the past into the present a bit. And how do you think, where do you think Congo is headed right now in terms especially of the new government and everything?
Well, at present, we are trying to improve the situation, but the system is quite weak because, for example, we have a government of some 54 ministers. Although we are happy that we have 18 women as ministers, which is quite a large number, and which is good. But the point is that a lot of money is being wasted in terms of all of these governments. We have too many ministries. We have too many agencies of government. And so a lot of money is going to government. And so there's little left for the people in terms of education, healthcare, infrastructure development, and so on. And the corruption is still very, very hard. The president is trying his best but it is so difficult given the fact that the system has been going there for years, and that unless we really put in real controls, nothing is going to be done. We, as a matter of fact, we now have in the Congo not only millionaires, we also have milliardaires. People, billionaires, not the French, in English, billionaires. So as long as this continues, it's going to be very difficult for us to really go by the path which Patrice Lumumba and after him Etienne Tshisekedi had wanted to go. And we'll hope that this second term of the president should be able to undertake reforms that will really try to improve the situation, because it is still not very good.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I bet it's not helped by the fact that the majority of the wealth that is generated in Congo just moves out of the Congo, and
exactly
it makes it impossible to develop it in a way that it should. Okay, I see we're having a question. Yes. So how are we seeing the role of imperialism and extractivist industries limiting revolutionary potential in the Congo today?
Very easy. These companies, even the progressive groups like China, we have, for example, now our mining industry, the Chinese are in control. As a matter of fact, it's interesting that some of the minings in Katanga used to belong to Americans, and then they sold it to the Chinese. And now they complain that the Chinese are taking everything. and the point is that the Chinese know how to manipulate people and how to really make sure that they can. For example, they have a control of all of their minds, and they don't they don't give good treatment to the workers, the Congolese workers. They treat them very, very badly. And until now, our government seems to be incapable of really doing what it should do to make sure that the rights of the people are respected, and the people work for decent wages, and so on and so forth. And of course, the major thing today, as you know, the problem in Eastern Congo, why Rwanda and Uganda are there, is because of minerals. As a matter of fact, they're using, they have infiltrated the country, and they have soldiers in, Rwandan soldiers in the Congo. The Rwandan government is supporting this M23 movement, which is really people from Rwanda and some Congolese, but basically people working for the Rwandan government. And of course, the major corporations in the world are collaborating with them. The major corporations who make cell phones and all kinds of things, they get most of these minerals from us. And we're getting them on the cheap, and so it is a major problem that we would like to see our country being in a position to control its resources. Basically, what Lumumba was doing, what Lumumba wanted to do, and until now we haven't succeeded in really taking control of. In 64 years, we should have been able to control our resources.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I think there's also a quite interesting parallel there with the, like you mentioned, the big tech companies that are benefiting so much from what is happening in Congo
Exactly.
now.
Oh,
And
yeah.
There's, of course, also the electric vehicle industry. And you were mentioning at the beginning of your presentation the automobile industry, like how that thrived off King Leopold's Congo because of the rubber tires that they could make.
Exactly.
And
Yes.
now electric cars. So
Yes.
yeah, it's really insane to see how, okay, the technology has moved on, but nothing has changed in Congo. Like it still bears the burden of our so-called progress.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Next question. Were there differences in how class struggle played out in the urban areas versus the rural areas of Congo? Very interesting question as well.
Yeah, not really, because even in the urban areas, the trade unions are very corrupt. You get the trade union leaders to go and, they ask the workers to go on strike, for example, but then the managers of the government agencies or the ministers and others will give them money, will give money to the leaders of the trade union, and the whole matter is finished. And then they claim well, we've gotten some concessions here and there. They got a little increase in salary, something like that, but nothing. So there is really, you don't see really, and of course in rural areas, the people are really tired and they don't have leaders. There's no leadership. So as a fact, this class struggle isn't quite a reality today. And even the young people can certainly be useful in terms of demanding better conditions of life and more jobs and so on. But at the present time, given the fact that people have to depend so much on support from their relatives. As a matter of fact, almost all of us living in America and in Europe and so on, we send money home regularly because there's no way people can really make it. They can have ends meet unless they have support from their kin, and this is why at the present time we don't see any class struggle going on in the Congo.
I see. We hear often that Congo is stateless and too corrupt to function. Many intellectuals and institutions support the idea of balkanization. How do you counter this narrative?
No, balkanization, nobody wants balkanization in Congo. This is, I remember several years ago, the one American journal, I can't remember the title of the journal, but they had an article from two persons, one American scholar and one South African scholar. They wrote an article saying that the Congo does not exist. And an American woman journalist replied to them. He said, "Oh no, the Congo exists real well because 80 million Congolese all want unity. They don't want balkanization." And that is one good thing about our country, that the people are really committed to the idea of one country, and they're willing to fight and die for that. So the problem, of course, is leadership is lacking, and because most of our politicians and intellectuals are more concerned about salaries and how to get rich and things like that. And so there is very little in terms of leadership for people to be able to really work to make sure that all that people want to have, they can have them by having a government that listens to them, a government that provides what is necessary for people to move forward. Many people in our rural areas can't find the tools with which to work in their agriculture. They can't find the good roads that they can use to bring their produce on urban markets, because it's an urban market so that you can really sell things and so on. So all of these are issues that we need really to look at and make sure that we can improve the situation.
And how do you feel about the fact that in recent times there's been so much more awareness around the Congolese struggle, and there's a lot of people who are probably also interested, curious about how to support Congolese people in this?
Well, one good thing is look at the newspapers. You hardly see an article on the Congo in all the major papers in the world. Maybe with exception of the two major papers in Belgium, sometimes Le Monde in France, New York Times maybe once in 3 months, 4 months, but generally it's when you have crisis, when you have big crisis, then we're in the papers. When there is no big crisis, you don't see anything about it. And so many people don't know about what's going on in the Congo.
Yeah.
The fact that we're talking about millions of people being killed, most people, to them, that is simply something that they can't relate to. They don't understand that, you see. And so the whole issue of, and also the fact that it is in these major countries where the major powers and the corporations and the governments don't want people to talk too much about the Congo. They don't want us to be ignored. Nobody knows about us. Yeah, and so this is what's going on.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's any further remarks from the audience. I don't know if you wanted to, Paloma, if you wanted to join the call again, or
Yeah, if there's any questions, but I think that most of the questions have been answered because the problem helping our country today is the fact that we have neighboring countries like Rwanda and Uganda, but have been really terrorizing our country. And we don't, for example, the International Court of Justice in 2006, we had a case against Uganda in the International Court of Justice, and the Ugandan went there and they did not accept the contested the accusation against them, namely the fact that Uganda has taken over the Ituri province. Ituri was now as a matter of fact, they created the Ituri province. And the general who was the head of the Ugandan troops in the Congo, even named the Congolese woman to be the governor of the Ituri province. And, but then in Uganda, who were partners, and of course who know each other very well. Kagame used to be a military officer in Uganda. He was a head of intelligence in Museveni's army. So they know each other very well, and they are good, together. But sometimes they're having some problems between them, and so they went to war against each other in Kisangani, the third major city in the Congo. What was they fighting for? They were fighting for the control of the gold market. Who would control the gold market? And they fought each other 3 times. Twice in 1919 and once in 2000. And so we put them we took them to the International Court of Justice for the fact that not only they have taken over the province of our country, and they have taken over the resources of that province, a lot of them, and also they participated in this wanton killing between them and Rwanda, which went to thousands of Congolese being killed, who were basically people who were in a line of bullets, and they were killed. And so the International Court of Justice, the court said that Uganda should pay the Congo $6 to $10 billion. And of course, Uganda said that that's too much, and we don't. So now the court has revised that number to very, very small, to like one couple million something. I don't know the exact word. And so Uganda is happy. They say they're happy to pay, but they're paying peanuts. It's total peanuts, nothing at all. And then the question I asked, why come Rwanda wasn't taken to court? Or the human rights body in the world about what we've done in the Congo. That's because Kagame can do anything. You see, Kagame, before he was in Uganda, they were fighting Habyarimana in Rwanda. They started in 1990. Went on to war, and therefore the African community started to ask them to work together to find a solution to the two, to the Arusha Accords. Do you know that from that time, from 1990 to the present, Kagame has never respected any accord he signed? Whatever accord he signed means nothing to him. He signs them and he goes on, does whatever he wants to do, you see. And the Americans, the French, British, they don't care. They don't say anything to him about it, you see. And of course, how come? And of course, he's seen like his angel. He's nothing. Nothing can touch him, you see. And so this is the problem that we have, that the international community does not treat us the same way they treat many other countries. They think that we're nothing, and they can plunder our country. They can take whatever they want to take, and they can let Mr. Kagame do whatever he wants to do. They don't care.
Yes, completely. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, I see something in the chat. Yeah, Paloma, you can join us.
I just wanted to intervene for a minute to let the students that are still listening to us that the book that we have been talking about is available at the university in our campus, so you can get access to it. And as we were saying before, as the professor was saying, one of the main issues regarding the conflict is Congo is how it's absolutely not portrayed in the media. It's absent from any media. So getting informed on it and understanding that power dynamics that there's behind is already the first step to get engaged in any way. And yes, that's all I wanted to say from my side. I think I got a couple of questions from students, but I think they have been answered already. So if you want to continue to wrap up the session or include any other comments, please go ahead. And if any other students have a question, please go ahead and ask.
Well, we only have 5 minutes, so all I have to say is to thank you for organizing this thing. I think that the friends of the Congo have to be really congratulated for this work they've been doing for years, and help. And also, we're happy that having people from different countries and participate in this process is really encouraging, and we are extremely happy for your participation in this process, and we hope that you continue to work for the people of the Congo who have suffered so much from the 15th century to the present. And thank you very much.
Yeah, also from me, huge thank you, Paloma, for organizing this again. Really appreciate it. And also, of course, Friends of the Congo for doing Congo Week every year. And thank you so much, Professor. I'm a big fan of your work, so this was super cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Yes, and thank you everyone for listening as well.
Bye. Yes, thanks for listening. I will share the title of the book so that everyone can go have a read.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.